Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
No, I'm used to as soon as I hit record, it records. And with this, it's like starting
like a
recording. Yeah, so
Let everyone
now
know
we'll
we're
go. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to A New Crazy Life. I'm Brian, and joining me as always is Heno.
Yo,
And then we also have Kiki with us this week.
Hello.
there you say ahoy.
Ahoy. Sorry. I've stepped away from the ahoy thing for a bit.
It's your signature move.
It is.
I mean, if she
I've
stepped
actually
away
been
from it,
bringing
it's
it
not
back in my-
really.
in my
Yeah, but do you ever
Chat
really
groups.
step away from your signature move?
No, probably not.
No. And even if you try, it's coming back somehow,
Yeah.
right?
Eventually, somebody will remind you, or
Yeah,
it'll. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
That you cracked beers over your head while you said ahoy.
Yeah. What are you, Stone
Sounds
Cold Steve
painful.
Austin? Like what?
jeez.
Stone Cold Pirate Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Stone Cold didn't crack him over his head. He just slammed them together,
Yeah.
which was probably more of a move to foam up the beers so he didn't actually consume quite as much beer on live television. But, you know.
Wow. Just ruin it for me.
Yep.
Now you're going to tell me it's not freaking real.
Well,
It
if you
was not an
watch him.
alcoholic beer. It wasn't even.
Oh, man, that would be a mess. If you watch him, when he poured him down his face, it was always just pouring out,
Foam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
everywhere. I
Yeah,
feel bad
'cause
for the people had to clean up after that all the time.
oh, yeah.
Hope they
Seriously.
got paid well.
Yeah. On the upside, a lot of it was at the very end of the show, at least. So
This is
it
true.
wasn't, the wrestlers didn't have to go out there and, they have to, otherwise they'd have to go out and like wipe the ropes down and all that, so
Right.
nobody slips and dies or something, So dangerous. See, Heno, it's not all fake. Just the outcome.
Just
the
yeah,
outcome.
some stuff's pre-programmed, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we ended up drifting into October, and it's completely my fault.
Okay.
Well,
I'll let you
kind
take
of.
the blame.
I'll take most of the blame because we started talking again like 2 weeks ago, and then it was like, oh, I got this. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got this. But happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
that's right. Because last time we recorded was before that. So yeah.
And you were out being the social butterfly.
I was a little bit. Yeah. I went out like three times and my family came over and
Wow, that's
that
pretty
was
good.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. So it was good. Yeah. It's always, like I said on Salty Language, it's always nice when people are like, hey, we remember you, and like we've talked on here. Well, like we've talked on here about like how people will say happy birthday on Facebook. And it's like, Yeah, especially now they've got it to where it's super automated. You know, you can just click on the thing, click a thing, but it's still the idea that somebody bothers to take that minute that they don't have to take. You know, because we all have people that we probably see it's their birthday and we're just like, and move on.
I still try to go onto the actual page.
Yeah.
Go to a comment. And then I used to have actually set photos in my device that I would upload one, but now because they've got the great, animated GIFs and other things, but I'll still go through and I'll select one that seems personally, appropriate,
related to
them or something, which I at least want to do that rather than the stock whatever. Hey, it's so and so's birthday. Wish him happy birthday. Press this button.
Yeah, and you get a present and a balloon emoji.
That's
with
it,
basically. Yeah. Like I said, even if people do that, I'm still in the gratitude stage on it.
Oh yeah.
Because like I said, you for sure don't have to. You can just ignore that and go about your day. So the fact that people do is pretty cool. And I posted on like Instagram, a rare selfie of me and obviously of me.
I did, saw that.
And it's so funny how I'm not a post pictures of me. Like I really don't like doing that.
It's true.
And it's so funny though, because no matter what else I post, selfies always get more likes than anything else. It's so funny how in your head you're just like, nobody wants to see this, and then you post it and you're like, oh, actually the people I follow actually do
see this. Yeah, that's like
right.
I've been doing a lot more like just funny story posting.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that people want to see you doing a thing or going somewhere or whatever it is. They like it because it's more personal.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
That's kind of made me laugh a little bit. Something I kind of stumbled into a little bit, with posting this year. But yeah, like I said, overall it was good. Last few weeks have been all right. I finally scheduled a therapy appointment.
How long's it been?
I think my appointment was scheduled in May.
Oh, ow.
Yeah, and that was on me. I canceled the last one, and then I had a pretty good run of not wanting to do anything regarding phone calls, appointments, any of that stuff. So, I got that done. I got my dentist appointment scheduled the other day.
That was also a funny story.
Yeah, of how I called them and they were like, yeah, we're not doing anything. You have to call back in a couple weeks. And we'll start booking for November. I'm like, okay, fine. And then they call me the next day and we're like, hey, you're late for your cleaning. And I was like, in my head, I'm going, yeah, I know. That's why I called yesterday. So the next day I go in because I was right by the place. I actually went in and then they were like, oh yeah, let's get you scheduled. I'm like, yeah, okay. So, I talked to the person. It's like, apparently they have temps that do phone calls sometimes and they don't tell the regular people, hey, we made these phone calls. So they have no clue what's going on when they're not there, basically. I was like, this seems like a really good system. And no wonder why I don't know, 6 months past due for a cleaning, because if this is what's going on the regular, that makes sense. So it's like, I'm so glad I'm finally going to be able to get that done. But what stinks now is it's like, I'm going to go in and it's not going to be the cleaning. It's going to be, because it's been so long now, I got to have the x-rays and everything. Then I'm going to have to come back for the cleaning. And then I still have at least one filling. Who knows if I have any more, but I have one that's been put off forever. And so that, so it's like, it's like that's why it bothers me so much when those appointments get pushed, because it doesn't just push one back. It's pushing 3 back right now.
Yeah.
And in my head, especially with my anxiety and stuff, it's like, I'd rather just like sit me down. Let's go do it all. Do my x-rays, do a cleaning. Okay. I can come back for a filling or something, but it's like, let's go. And they're all like, well, let's slow it down and let's do it this way. And so it's either that or I got to go half an hour away for my dentist. This one's like 5 minutes up the road. So yeah, good times.
I had my regular Actually, I didn't even have a regular cleaning scheduled. Somehow with all the root canals and crowns and all this stuff, it just kind of slipped by. And so they set up a day for me, and I went in there, and the hygienist is the same one I had last time, which was great. And she says, well, I see you've been in here a lot this year. And I'm like, yeah.
Mhm.
She's like, so we probably don't need to have a consult from the dentist today. I said, no.
Yeah.
Probably don't need x-rays either. I'm like, no. And there's nothing you need to find in my mouth right now.
Yeah.
Nothing.
All you need
So-
to find is some like residual plaque you can scrape off. Other than
Yes,
that,
that is
we're
it.
done here.
Yeah. So then I get to the counter, and what's great is this girl Maggie, who used to work there years and years ago, she's back, and I just love her to death. And she looked at me, she's like, yeah, you have a balance due. And I'm like, of course I do. And at this point, like, other people have come in from the back or checking in on, hey, how's your crowns doing? Everything I'm great. And so there's like, it's like, oh, it's, whatever it is, another $230. I'm like, yeah, just, should we put it on the card on file? Yeah, go ahead. I'm like, cool. Because remember I had the debate about like,
Yes.
should I schedule this and do this? And, that I'd buy a guitar and a heartbeat or whatever.
Right.
And so, but then, like you're just saying, is like, once you get past that thing, then it's just like, you know what, just do it all. I don't care. Load it
Yeah.
up. So then a week
Acceptance
ago,
is, I believe, the stage you're at.
yes, exactly. I am in acceptance. That is the stage. Correct. So then I that's funny. So then I'm
It's like you're
driving down.
grieving your. Whoa, geez, I just blew up the mic. You're grieving your money,
Yeah.
Turn
Well, like I don't. There's. I've just accepted that it's leaving. But so I'm driving home, and I got the Apple CarPlay thing going, and all of a sudden it's like woohoo, text message, and SV Dental. I'm like, oh, I wonder what this could be. You have a balance due of $83, Henna. Would you like us to put it on the card on file? And I'm like, that sounds like my cleaning. My cleaning should be covered. But
Yeah.
but here's the thing. I may have actually dusted all of my benefit. Like
Yeah.
everything.
I didn't know that. I thought preventative care was kind of ignored
Right?
by that.
That's why I made a note to myself to then check my dental plan, because I was just like, well, just throw it on there. At this point, I don't care, and I'll
Yeah.
figure it out later. But yeah, because that should have been, or it might have been that the benefit portion of my, like, I still got a discounted rate,
Yeah.
but there's no more money left to be given.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I have an out-of-pocket, not an out-of-pocket maximum. Sorry, a maximum benefit amount per year.
Okay.
And
And yeah, you may be right. You may have hit that. Yeah.
yeah, and
Because you
then-
did
and-
have a lot of stuff done. So
Oh,
yeah.
all the things. Yeah. Like even like, and there's, I don't know, like $15 or $16 left on my FSA account. So I needed to go see the chiropractor. And so I'm just going to pay for that myself for, I'm just going to go once a month now until the end of the year. I do have 10 visits on my health insurance, but I have to go down to Haley, and I kind of don't like the guy's style. It's still
Yeah.
good. It works, but he's a soft touch.
Yeah.
Where Aaron is like,
Dropping
make you feel-
cinder blocks on you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's times where he has put me like, I'm like, am I in a professional wrestling match right now? He will have my head like with one, his forearm here and his other arm here, and he's like,
Jeez.
you ready for this one? I mean, and it's a full on, like, he's gonna like fully
Yeah.
swing his at the waist and throw his whole body into it, but it'll work. And I'll be like, I'm like, do it.
Does he smash a couple beers over his head?
There's been times where I'm just like, he's just ready to just drop an elbow on me.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't mind. Sometimes you're in that spot where you just really
Yeah.
need that adjustment. So
Yeah.
So my
you're just like,
chiropractor, he's like, you're my favorite person who comes in. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because you make so many popping and cracking noises. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be. Like, he's also my boss's husband. So I'm like, what do
I
I
didn't
do?
know that.
Yeah, my
Would-
chiropractor's my boss's husband.
when you hear somebody make comments like that, it kind of makes you wonder why they got in the business a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
A little
It's like I
bit.
have a couple friends that are surgeons that are like, I did this so I could legally cut people open. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah, that might have
like
been
you're
an
not-
overshare.
yeah. Like I love you and all, but also that's a little terrifying. But hey, what are you going to do? It's probably what makes them great at what they do, Like, oh, hey, cool, check this out. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need to watch you cut something open.
One thing that was good is Sharon sent me a text message one day that said, "There's a guy here that wants to buy the truck," and I'm like, "All right, fine, sell the truck." Like I still like the truck, but I only really use it once a year, which is about right now to take stuff to the dump. But she's like $500. I'm like, no, we paid your sister like $1,400 for it. Get 8, and I guess he took it. And
yeah.
So what was great, I've been having, I did some gigs where I wasn't actually playing music. I was just doing the audio, which was kind of cool. But it was at that gig, and all of a sudden there was cash, and so I asked Sharon, I said, "What are you gonna do with your half of the truck dollars?" And she's like, "Pay credit cards." I'm like, "I'm paying dental bills." And she says, "Yeah, I should do that too."
Living it up, yeah.
Yeah, but that was like, and I like even told the guy, I'm like, I seriously would drive this thing once a year. It's got a rebuilt motor, and it inspired me again. Like we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you just need to. It's not about time, because I can always make time for the things that I want to do, and that could include doing nothing, but. I can make time for the things that are of importance, and for some reason, getting rid of the truck helped me put myself into the next mindset. And I was unloading the van, and I turned around and I just whacked the side of the convertible with this big old speaker and put a dent in the side of it. Maybe like the size of a quarter or $50, which then it was probably the size of a quarter, and I turned it into a $50 trying to fix it. But and then at that point,
let me give you a quick tip. Don't use a hammer to fix a dent. Use a suction cup system. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, the car from 1982 suction cups don't really work because it's still steel. Yeah, you need. Which was kind of funny.
I've seen my dad pull dents on all sorts of things.
Yep. It's like what I needed was that little round backer thing, and then you tap against it anyhow. But so then as I'm doing that, I'm like, you know what? If this vehicle wasn't here, this wouldn't have happened. All right, let's sell this. So I got the battery all hooked up to the charger. I started it up, and I'm just like, okay, all I need to do is put this door motor in this weekend. And then that got me inspired to list things that I have just laying around, not being used, that can go. I had them all up into a pot. Exactly. Yeah. I had a nice pot. The dogs.
Yeah.
We don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
They'll fetch a pretty
toilet.
All you do is cost us money.
Yeah.
But so today I got a whole bunch of stuff listed, and it was just that it was just what I needed, that little bit of a spark to remind myself that there's like, I don't know why that works. I don't know why, like, for the last month I haven't found the motivation to do any of it, but then all of a sudden you just get that little mind shift, and boom, you're just on it. And I look at it gratefully, I guess. I just say, you know what? Thank you for giving me the motivation and the sudden realization that this can be a priority.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah. Well, like you said, with the car, if the other isn't there, then you probably don't whack the car, and those kind of things. So,
and then winter's coming, and I would have to now find the room to put the car in there. And so I even asked the guy with the truck, like, we have this convertible if you're interested in that, but I don't think he'll want to pay me what it's probably worth. But we'll see. Yeah, and then it was, and like I said, it was nice making a little extra money on some gigs and stuff, and music took a way calm down, which I really needed. I needed a break. Even Tom, my bandmate's like, hey, Paul was like, oh, I'm gonna be doing a little Shop of Horrors, so I really kind of need to take the month off. And Tom's like, you want to get together tonight? I'm like, no, like, just no.
Sure don't.
I have no desire whatsoever. I'd even missed it just because I wasn't paying attention to text messages so much, but. There was this long text about, hey, do you want to get together and do this? And I never even read it, never even responded to it. I was like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
Because work has been just a challenge. But again, like, I just love it when, as long as I'm moving forward, like I can handle it. Like I still enjoy it. It's the bummer right now is just with all the road work we have going that I have to get up really early and I have to leave the house early. And it's not my routine. And I was explaining this to my coworkers is in some of the money books I've read, like books where they help you understand your relationship to money.
Yeah.
Betty, do not start snoring. I heard that. I'm just going to keep waking you up, dude. But one of the things is when you're looking at, is it worth having my job versus getting a new job somewhere else? People automatically factor in like, oh, childcare. You're like, okay, I have to pay for childcare in order to have this job. And some people will finally say, well, if I didn't have that job and I just worked at home part-time and took care of my children myself, I would actually still make the same amount, right? You come to those conclusions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things they tell you to do is to figure out what your actual hourly pay is.
Right.
When you include the minute you are getting ready to go to work, from the time that you are solely focused on getting out of the house, the commute to work, and then I included not just the commute home, but how long does it take you to
wind down
to where you're ready to have your personal life back. And right now it's 12 hours almost. And so I explained that to my coworkers and they're like, oh, whoa, I never thought about it. I'm like, yeah, you guys live a little farther than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm leaving at 6:45 so I can get to work at 7:30, because if I leave at 7, I'm getting to work at almost 8. So I would rather drive for 40 minutes than almost an hour. I know it's only 10 or 15 minutes, but that is time that I'm sitting in a car.
But that's also like 10 or 15 minutes a day. It's an hour across a week,
right?
So
that's
and I know it doesn't seem like that much, but it is. It really is.
Yeah. It really is. And
you're right. There's so many people, especially salaried employees. Well, actually, either way, that don't take any of that into account, and they spend a lot of commute time or those kind of things that they're not factoring into how much am I actually making.
And I really look at it. We have these conversations at work a lot about am I gonna use my device for work emails. And some of the employees actually, they don't mind having Outlook on their phone or even having their email app on their phone connected with the work thing, because they just don't want to sit down at the computer and bring up the actual programs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Me, I have it on there, but I have it buried where I have to actively look for it, right? I don't have it readily available. And I still prefer that my personal time is my personal time, and I have to make a choice to make work be there, with the exception of emergencies and stuff like that. And that's for me. That for me is a type of self-care. That's me putting up some boundaries, saying that and part of it's just practical stuff. It's like you don't get to expect me to answer emails unless on my device, unless you pay for that device.
Yes.
If you pay for my device, then yes, that's fine. But if you're not offering, you ain't getting it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also go back to the previous thing, right? Like it's one thing if you're at work, but like a lot of people, by having it on their personal device, then on Saturday something will happen, or if depending on the kind of job you have, when you're not there on a day off or something, there'll be stuff going on, and they're tempted to look, and it's like you're just giving away your time now.
That's it. And you're and you're giving away that it's that same idea of like, if it takes me a half an hour to get into the house to actually feel like, oh, I want to change out of my work clothes and assume my personal life again, then that's a half an hour that is coming out of my pay as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That is part of my, it is not my day's wages divided by 8. It is whatever it takes to add those additional shoulder out time that goes into it.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
and
Yep.
it makes you go, is this really worth it?
Well, you're
And
right.
so-
I mean, if it takes you, half an hour to get ready, an hour commute, then an hour to come home, and then another hour to wind down. I mean, that's another, 2 to 4 hours a day
Yeah.
that you're not considering otherwise.
Yeah,
And
most
like you
people
said,
don't.
across 5 days, it's like, that's quite a bit of time.
It is. It's
You know?
it's a whole other day of work almost.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
I got paid my hourly wage for that, and then like you said, when you break down, if you count those hours in, you start going,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I don't make as much as I thought I did.
As I thought I did. So maybe
Yeah.
I should look for a job a little closer. It may not pay as
Right.
well, but in the end, I have more personal life or whatever it is. I mean, I think those
Yeah.
are, I think those are important things to really look at when you start looking at. And this is what I really love about a lot of these books about your relationship with money, and it has to do with. It wasn't so much with the 12-step program. Debtors Anonymous didn't touch on this as much. It was more about the other 12-step program, which was, I'm forgetting. Oh, Under Earners Anonymous. So Under Earners Anonymous really focuses on self-worth. So somebody that doesn't have a high self-worth is going to take jobs where they don't get paid what they deserve. They give away their time. And like I said, it's touched a little bit about DA, but the books all touch on this. And this is about the idea of your time has value.
Yeah.
And even though like there's a lot of times where someone will say, hey, are you willing to do this thing? And like a music thing. And, we really can't pay you that much. And I can choose whether I want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
The old version of me, and this really was part of my alcoholism and the people pleasing thing, I would say yes to everything.
Well, I remember you and I having this conversation on the podcast a long time ago about, and I think it had to do mostly with you talking about music. I referred to how like doing, like when I was doing art all the time, and I always had people that were like, oh, you should do this for me for free. And I'm like, why? You would pay anyone else to do it. Why don't you at least offer me something for it?
Something.
Like you just expect free, but it's, and I know we talked about valuing others' times to where it's like, if we ask someone, like if I asked you to do a podcast song, I would be like, how much for this? I wouldn't just be like, hey, you should do this. I wouldn't assume you're going to do it. If you then go, hey, don't worry about it. Cool.
There you go.
But I wouldn't expect you up front to do whatever it is you do as a profession or a specialty for free. I don't, like I said, if you volunteer it, it's one thing, but for me to just expect it, that's unfair. I've never been a big fan of that.
Yeah, and I've taken on things where I just said, give me a gift card to, blah 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 restaurant or
Sure.
some store, whatever, because then it feels like we made an exchange, and I'll get something that I ordinarily wouldn't do, and that to me is worth it.
Mhm.
But I didn't quite really mean to go down this tangent on this, but I think when people really do look at I think people forget that money has our relationship with money and finance goes a lot deeper than most of us are willing to admit to.
Yes.
And there's a lot of emotional connection to it. There's a lot of familial, connection based on we saw maybe what our parents did or, how they, and that may have been reflected on us.
Yeah.
And-
or even
and-
just your upbringing. If you grew
That's
up
what
in
I'm saying, your upbringing, yeah.
you didn't have a lot of times you have a scarcity mindset, and that
Yeah.
affects your financial
Yeah.
thinking.
Or you had somebody that
Excuse
you
me.
were very close with that had a certain mindset, and now you've assumed it yourself.
Mhm.
But we don't want to equate that. We don't look at it's already hard enough to look within ourselves for our for our liabilities and try to take care of them. It's another thing when they're tied to something that's so concrete to many of us as our paycheck or our whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I think where I'm going with this is that my work still makes it where it's worth it to me. And
Right.
it's not just about the money. It's also about is it worth being this tired sometimes? Yes, it is. I am very satisfied with it. And I love to be able to say that. And I love, we have some projects that are starting to close up. Sure. I get to that point where I'm like, man, I'm not going to get all these things done this week, but then some things get done and it really does feel good. And I do hope that someday down the line when things slow down, whether it's because I'm retiring or I'm decided to change jobs or whatever it is, that I still challenge myself like I get challenged at my work. I really hope I do. Because
you're right, because that is a big factor in it too. And I think that's part of what happened with people during the COVID shutdown, and then the post part of that is that a lot of people they had the time to finally stop and go, is this job making me content? Is this job paying me what I think it pays? Do I need this job? Yeah. And a lot of people changed their thinking coming out of that, because I think there were a lot of people that were finally starting to value themselves differently after that. And you're seeing it now. You're seeing a lot of, industries and stuff really pushing for better pay for some of the things and whatever. It's, because we all know we're of work jobs where, I got a sister I believe she's salaried, and I think if she actually broke down the hours she's working, I bet she's not making what she thinks she's making,
Yeah.
And I keep trying to tell her, it's like, you're killing yourself for less money than you think you're making. If you're really making great money, especially when you're younger, I get it a little more. As you get older, it's kind of like there needs to be that balance of money and contentment. I think more so because, when you're young, a lot of times you just work garbage jobs. It's like, hey, this pays me whatever an hour. It's so cool. But when you're 40, it's like, I don't really want to lug boxes anymore,
well, Sharon,
or whatever it is.
Sharon, there's, because she does bookkeeping at her work. She just said today that there's so many people out there looking for part-time bookkeepers. And she's like, there's this one place they're willing to pay $30,000 a year for 10 hours a week.
Wow.
And I'm like, you get 2 of those, that's $60,000 a year, and you're only working 10 hours less than you're working. Because right now she works 30 something hours, 32 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, technically she's back to full time, but she ain't making $60,000 a year. Right? I'm just like, you could even take on 3 of these jobs or 2.5 or whatever it is, and still have the free time that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you just need to find out if you're on their payroll or if you're, if this is on the side, but whatever. I'm like, and I think she kind of looked at me I was like, why not?
Do you know why? It's because I think a lot of us, especially older generations, we were taught that career equals stability.
Yeah.
Like a full-time equals stability.
Yeah.
Let me reword it a little bit, right? And it's not true. Especially now,
not
it's
today.
not true.
Yeah, definitely not now.
Careers don't exist like they did for our parents. It's a much different situation. Like a lot of people, they showed, that people are switching jobs at a higher rate. And I'm like, yeah, because people are starting to value themselves, a little more. So they're going, why am I, like me, this was, retail type stuff, but I was working a job years ago making $6 an hour, and I was miserable. It was boring. It was awful. And then another place was like, hey, we'll give you $8 an hour and full time versus part time. And I was like, well, this is a no brainer. I'd clearly take this, and I would always have been that way. If 2 weeks later, another job had offered me $10 an hour, I would have probably jumped ship and gone to that, as long as it wasn't something that I thought I was going to hate, because it's like, no, my goal is to make as much money as I can in the shortest amount of time I can, and still be, not being like in the mafia or something. So,
Well, Kiki, you had, I think, one of the most profound changes.
Careers?
I consider it that way because of I look at it as anyone that's in any sort of a health field is doing it for more than just the money. They're doing it because there's something about it that made them feel good.
I sure hope so. Because if you're not, you're generally going to be cold and
well, and that was just
great.
it. So when I first moved to Idaho Falls, I got into a job that it's a job that I had been doing for my sister for years and years. And it's just, I slid into it really easily and everything. But then it got to a point where,
It's home health care, by the way.
yeah, it's like home health care for rehab for adults with disabilities is where I started at. And I was getting people, like, there's people with less experience than me. Like, we're talking 0 experience in this field, getting paid more than me. And they're balking at me asking for a raise, even though I've been with them for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. So I went to a different company where it was senior care. And then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I am so stressed that my anxiety meds and everything are not working.
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this. I love the people, but the way that it was being ran and everything like that, I couldn't keep doing it for my own physical and mental health. Like, it was just awful. And so then I went to doing, doing crystal. Yeah, I work in retail now, doing rock and crystal sales.
Well, a lot of it was also the organizational structure.
Yeah.
So you've got people that are your supervisors now that actually clearly
we're not qualified.
Yeah, they were previous in the field workers who got promoted, typically because there was just nobody else, but it didn't mean they had any managerial experience whatsoever, or business savvy or anything.
Yeah.
Right. And promoting people does not, you got to be trained too, because if you move up, there's new tasks and exactly.
That's how we ended up with a nurse that was doing really shady things that ended up getting fired for it, because I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And then the big part about it was because the owner of the whole facility, he comes from a business background. I'm like, dude, this isn't just income. This is people's lives. You can't.
I agree. I had a cousin that was a hospital administrator, and he's such a tender-hearted person. And I was like, I don't know how you do that job, because his job is bottom line. It's not patient care. His job is to make sure the budget fits, to make sure, and those are where you got to make some awful decisions as a person, unfortunately, because of the structure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how Jen, that used to be our co-host on here, she staffed for like nursing homes and at-home care and all that kind of stuff. And she's a super tender heart too. And just some of the phone calls, because the patients would call her and be like, I'm bedridden and this person's not showing, just stuff that breaks your heart, because you're like, oh no, like, we got to get someone out there. And then, she'd just see how the employees just didn't care. Like, they didn't, like, oh, well, too bad. I wanted the day off because there's a concert I'm going to, it's like,
and that's
it's
how
like,
a lot of
this
it
person's
was.
stuck in a bed, Yeah.
And now you're doing retail. And from what I've seen, you work for people that actually appreciate your hard work. Yeah. They have given you extra hours and promotions and whatever based on that. And that
I feel valued and appreciated at my job.
Yeah. And even if the money isn't the same,
definitely not.
It's
But some days though, it depends, because a lot of it is also based on commission for me. So the better sales days that I have, the better my payday, or the better my hourly wages for that day. And they've been totally thrilled with how much I've been able to bring in and stuff. And that's awesome. And now they're wanting
it's great
to
when you can
cross-train me. And
yeah, that's so much better, because like you said, even if it was less money, which can suck, but it's like going in and leaving with that that sense of leaving and not hating yourself, basically.
That's it.
Leaving and being content with the day of work and going, hey, I worked hard today, I'm tired, but that's okay. I don't mind this. I don't feel like I'm.
If it was like, even though it is retail, with what I do, there is still a lot of things that I've been able to be helpful with. We have a lady that comes in and she's like, hey, my son's really struggling with, some depression and stuff like that. I believe in the crystal thing. He doesn't. What's something that I could get him that, might help him, but he's not going to like completely scoff at it when you give it to him. Or what are some stones that might be helpful? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I've done the work and the education to figure out what rocks do what things. And it's been really helpful for people, and they're super appreciative about it. And that's that to me is still giving me that same sense of fulfillment that I was getting working healthcare, but it's completely way more relaxed. I only work 6-hour shifts. I get my weekends off for the most part,
And
and
you're
I
not
still get to
bringing
do my
that home with
creative
you.
stuff. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not bringing it home with me. I still get to do all the creative things that I want to do, and it's been really, really good. And my bosses like absolutely appreciate everything that I do. And I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like
awesome.
like they treat you like family there and everything. It's not like you're just another worker. It's no, that, and that's the difference between working for like a mom and pop place versus
Yes.
something that's
A
more
corporation or
corporate run.
something.
Yeah, yeah,
For sure. Most of my small bit or my experiences in corporate stuff. So
yeah.
they don't care if you walk out. They'll just,
No.
oh, we'll replace you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much, of the here, we show appreciation by having a pizza party type
Yeah.
situation. We can't give you a raise, but we can, you can get whatever toppings you want on the
That was
pizzas
my
for
boss too.
everyone.
She's like, we can't do raises quite yet. However, I can donate my time. And she, like, because my boss is also a massage therapist. So she's like, so one free massage a month, your choice. And she
Okay.
goes, I can't give you a raise, but I can give you a massage. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm totally down.
Yeah. Yeah, there's value in that, I mean, that's what we all did before, like, money was the big thing, people bartered
Exactly.
and traded their services for each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Or,
Exactly.
Henno mentioned that a little bit ago, like do a little music for somebody and maybe they're like, hey, I can do this for you, or I can,
I had this extra gift card here,
yeah, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of us that do have a gift card just sitting around, and you're just like, because sometimes people will give you a gift card to a place that you're like, okay,
Yeah.
but
I
maybe
have a
somebody
Red
else
Lobster
is like,
gift card,
awesome.
and the nearest Red Lobster is 5 hours away. Yeah, here, you can have this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, there was a service that used to, like, you could exchange them. They'd take a little taste off the top, of course, but you could exchange one store for another. And I was like, this is a great service, because there are times, well, like right now, I'm trying to save up for a PlayStation 5. I have a bunch of Target gift cards, like small increments of Target gift cards, So if somebody were to give me whatever else, if I could be like, hey, I can turn this into Target, now I can, keep adding to my pile, basically.
Keep adding to the piggy bank until
it's nice. I mean, whatever else, but
I was just reminded of speaking of work. That's my win for the week, was a work related thing where my coworker that frustrates me because I feel like his head's somewhere else most of the time.
Okay.
And I know he does like side jobs and does other things, and when I show up for work, I'm at work. I'm not messing around.
That's how I always was too.
Yeah, I'm not going and hiding somewhere and texting whoever, whatever my latest fling is or whatever. It's like I and one of my other coworkers.
Yeah, he just does it in the open. He doesn't hide about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, none of us mind.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, right. Like, none of us mind if after lunch, like, we've never cracked the whip over there. It's like, after lunch you take your time, you text somebody, whatever. Nobody's ever cared, but it's always been like, when you get here, get to work. Let's just put in this couple hours, get rolling, and then we can we can ease back a little bit, right?
I used to, like, the one video store I worked at, I used to have a couple of employees that they would show up for their shift with food and then expect that they were going to eat on the clock, right?
Yeah.
And as they got there, and I'm like,
that's it.
We have work to do. You can,
and that's what.
I've been here 3 hours and haven't eaten yet.
Right. And that's what happens with this particular employee, right? It's like, and he did a thing where he showed up, clocked in, left, came back. And I was like, and I was looking for him for a reason. And I don't go looking at our cameras unless someone gives me a reason to look at them.
Yeah.
But he gave me a reason, and I looked, and I was just like, okay, yeah, you messed up. And our general manager was out of town. And then the next day, he did a no show, no call, and another coworker was relying on him. And so both of us were like, really, I mean, and so we sent some emails to the GM, and this was the brilliant one. Our bookkeeper was doing timesheets, and the GM told her, because I said, do not pay him for this time. And he told our GM told the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper's like, I don't have the authority to knock off someone's time.
Yeah.
Like that's your job, not mine.
Right.
But she came up with this brilliant way to say, she said she brought the timesheet to him, and she said, now on this day, you had like some errands you needed to do, so you actually really didn't start working until about 9. Is that right?
Mhm.
And like totally gave him my coworker a gracious way to say to get out of it,
Right.
and to basically say yeah that's about right.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And then the next week, the GM comes back, and he did the thing like you're just talking about, where he shows up and he's in the freaking bathroom for 10 minutes. And I'm like, I know that there's Wi-Fi in that bathroom, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you ain't, and I started to lose my stuff, and then I stopped.
That's the worst part now, is that like years ago, if somebody was in the bathroom for 10 minutes, you're like, hey, they got a situation, whatever. Now you can't help but go, are they on their phone? Are they on Twitter or something right now?
Right. So I told him, I was like, because I said, will you just check in with me first thing? Because I have things I need to do, and I have things I'd like you to do. And if I can just have that 30-second conversation, I can move on.
Yeah.
And be totally okay with it. And then I went over to look at this job he's doing, and it was a job that I used to do, and he's gotten really good at doing it. And I was like, man, because there's times where I'm like, is it even worth having this guy around?
Yeah, that's where it gets tough, is where it's like, how much do you look the other way, because they do really good work when they do the work. Yeah,
exactly. And here he was doing this great job, and I stopped. And so, like I said, my general manager was on vacation. I needed to have a conversation with him. And all of a sudden it dawned on me. I was like, he no-called, he no-showed and no-called. But you know what? We have other employees that also don't call. And what I'm saying is they call somebody, but they don't. We have an office broadcast that we can do via email. These employees have been trained by the general manager to just contact the general manager. And I'm like, that's not how we've done things here.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so bad if he put it on blast afterward.
Exactly.
Yeah, someone has to communicate. Yeah.
Yes. And this particular employee that I'm talking about has a real good habit of whataboutism. He's always pointing fingers at other people. And in this case, I was like, you know what? He's got a point. I'm gonna make it so he doesn't have to whataboutism. So I go to talk to him. And I say, hey, I just want to let you know that I understand that you didn't show up last week, and Sean was really mad at you. And I said, but I will be talking to Joe about that. But I'm also going to be talking about the fact that other people in our office also don't do this, and that it's not fair, because you're just seeing it the example of what other people are doing.
That's right.
Right. And then in the meantime, he brings up that he's got some personal stuff going on.
Mm.
And I was like, and I said, thank you for telling me that. Because if you let me know that you got some things going on, I'm a compassionate person.
We all do, right? Like, we all need some.
Yeah, it's like we can totally be willing to adjust that and everything, but just communicate.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if
you don't even have to get into details or something.
No,
but just be
no.
like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm struggling because I got some stuff outside of work.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
we
so
all have. Yeah.
And so I might be a little bit late for work because of that. And because I start seeing a pattern, and I'm just like, all right, what's happening? But if you're upfront with it and you're saying, hey, I'm dealing with this thing with my, whatever, my kid got into trouble at school and therefore has to now stay in detention. And so I have to, whatever, pick up times or something has changed. Come in and say it, because most of the time we'll give you, some leeway. So it changed everything. And again, it was about me. It was about get out of me and get into you. And it just took that little bit of a, hey, maybe I can find a different way of approaching this, just like my bookkeeper did.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed everything for me, because I really needed that moment of like, I'm not sitting in the car behind someone that's driving me nuts going, what is wrong with this person? I looked into that car and I saw that the person was new to town and had no idea what they were doing, and that's why they're driving a little bit funky right now, right?
Right.
It's like I got out of me, got into the, and that was my total win because it
That's a
allowed
good
me
one.
to. It allowed me to end the week actually feeling good about my work relationship with this particular person who sometimes frustrates me, and I'm
Yeah.
sure I frustrate him just as much,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
And it felt really good, and it felt good to also. And here's the other thing is when I decided to bring it up openly in our office, and I just said, hey, you know, and I talked to the person directly. I said, you do not let everybody know when you're not going to be here. You talk to the general manager directly, because I imagine he told you to do it that way. And I looked at the GM and I just said, this is not how we've done it. And it's not fair to the people that are doing it this way.
Yeah. Well,
And we
by
should not
knowing
have
if
two
someone's
standards.
not coming in, you can all adjust your expectations for the
That's
day.
all the thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many times I walk in, I'm just like, where are they?
Yeah.
Oh, they took the day off. Oh, that would be nice to know.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's a little more for me with my direct coworkers. However, it's pretty much applies to everybody because we all work together. We're not that big, you know, we're a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt it's still, you know, it's that reminder of there is no finish line. This is a journey, and I still need reminders. Get out of yourself, dude. You know, it's
Right?
not all about you.
Yeah.
Think about other people, because I will automatically give people a lot of slack before button pressed head pops off. Like I've got a real good threshold on that. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not thinking things the wrong way, you know? And it was
So
a good
true.
reminder.
Yeah.
It was a good reminder of, again, it's like, look for the connections with people that are around you rather than, you know, what can tear you guys apart.
It's really like just lead with the kindness you would want from others, you know,
Actually,
'cause
yeah.
if, you know,
Right.
I mean, it really is kind of just the golden rule, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's hard to do because we get trapped so much in how it affects us that we don't think about what could be going. You know, it's like, you know, you
What
go
could be
into
going
any
somebody
place.
else,
And,
I
yeah,
need to
customer
remind
service
this to one of
person.
my coworkers, one of my employees, like he, in his defense, he is on the spectrum. So there is that. So I have to approach it differently than what my boss does, because my boss lets him walk all over her. And I'm like, you are the boss. You're the boss. You make the rules. He doesn't get to treat you that way.
Yeah.
But like he'll get in there like, because he had to work a Sunday because 2 of our other employees called out sick and one had already asked for the day off for something else. And he gets a hold of the boss and starts tearing into her. Well, I expect to be compensated. Dude, you're getting paid your hourly wages for this. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah.
Like,
Sunday's not like a federal holiday as far as I know.
right?
Yeah.
But he is a member of the LDS church, so we do try to give him Sundays off
Yeah,
just
sure.
so that he can go to church and stuff.
Right.
Well, after I found out he did that, I told Maria, I was like, Maria, he's off on Monday, Tuesday for the next 2 weeks. And she goes, why? And I was like, well, because I know that he's moving and he's probably going to need that extra time to get his stuff unpacked and get his shit together. And she's like, oh. And I was like, and maybe because I'm a little annoyed that he got after you again, and I know you're not going to do anything about it.
Right.
And I was like, so maybe. I was like, but I do approach things with him differently. He'll freak out about how something's being organized at the store, and it's like end of the world to him. And I'm like, Caleb,
Yes.
you are not the only person who works at that kiosk. Things are going to get moved around, and we've been trying to move stuff around so that it gets like, because somebody will walk by something a million times if it's in the same spot, it gets moved, and suddenly they've never noticed it before, and it's there, and they buy it.
Yep.
And I was like, that's
100%.
part of business. So I explained that to him, and he's like,
Yep.
oh, okay, and it totally makes sense to him.
Yeah.
But like,
I used to
you
do that
just
when
have
I
to
had
give
my
him that
comic
minute
shop.
of like, yeah. He's like, I was like, Caleb, I understand where you're coming from, and I can see how this can be frustrating. I need you to know, though, that this is how this is supposed to work. And then he's immediately good. Maria cannot have that conversation with him.
But it's really frustrating when you're a person that's like that, because I'm that way with like my stuff. I don't like people to move my stuff, and when they do, like I remember like when me and Jen were together, I had a meltdown because she grabbed my keys one day and she didn't put them back where I keep them, and I always put my keys in the same spot. I have since I was a little kid. And one that was so that they don't get lost. But it was also, that's where they go, right? Like, and then in my head, that's where they go. And then I get up and I go to look for my keys and they aren't there. And I'm like, where are my keys? And I start, flipping out. And she's like, relax, they're just over here. And I'm like, you don't understand though. Like, to me, that's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And I understand now that I needed to dial that down a little bit, but at the time it really did feel like world-ending stuff. Now if something like that happened, I'd probably be mildly irritated, but I wouldn't be, because I'd be like,
be a whole meltdown situation.
no, I'd be like, put my keys back, But yeah, I can understand, and I never thought about it that way though, too, because I think back, I'm still going through things where, having been told that, by my therapist and such, that she believes whether I'm on the spectrum or not, I don't know, but I'm definitely in a neurodivergent mindset, right? So, I'm still in that looking back at things, going, occasionally.
That
So
makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
So you said that, and then it just clicked in my head, and I'm going, oh, you know what? I remember at the video store when I was running things, and I had things where I wanted them. I never considered that, first of all, this could be stressing someone else, but also that if things got moved, I'd be like, why did you move that? Very how dare you?
And when I first started, he was very timid and quiet about the things that irritated him. He would bottle it up and let it, build up into this huge meltdown. Yeah. He's gotten he's been talking with his therapist, and he was telling us and communicating with us that she is telling him to speak out more. And
yes, that helps.
When something bothers him. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, however, she did not tell him the part that, depending on what you speak out about, not everyone's going to agree with you.
Right. And you're not always going to get your way.
And you're not always going to get your way.
So
I'm
true.
like, can you please? I was like, can we call his therapist and be like, can you please tell him the other half of that now?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to
it might always work out in your favor.
Yeah.
But you know how big of a deal it can be just to even say anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but now if you know that if you say something and it might not work out, then what are you going to say?
Yeah. But well, you think about for some people, because they really could look at that and go, well, my therapist told me to speak out. Why is A not getting B?
Yeah.
And it's a legitimate way of thinking because, not all of us think the same exact way, so it could be, like you said, it's about learning how to communicate with people that think differently than you, whether they're just anybody, right? We all have to figure out how to communicate with another person because we're different people. Not all of us think the same way. So leading with kindness and trying to, but also setting a boundary there
that's what I was like.
Hey, chief, you don't get your way.
There's boundaries that need to be put there, and I'm trying to instill that in my boss. You are absolute sweetheart, and you take on so much of his chastising you personally. I was like, you're 20 years older than he is.
Yeah.
It's okay to put your foot down and say, no, this is not how you act. And I even reminded him, I'm like, Caleb, you need to be a little bit more grateful to the position that you're in with these people, because if this was any other job, they would have just canned you and not even thought twice about it.
Yeah, especially if you go at your boss.
These people care about you. Yeah, I was like, these people care about you. And if you're going to start taking them for granted, you're going to find yourself in a really bad position that you probably don't want to be in.
Yeah, and that could be even worse because now you got a whole new scenario you're stepping into. Exactly. And I know for a lot of us, we don't like change. And
Yep. So I was like, I just put little reminders out there, be like, Caleb, remember,
yeah,
you've got it pretty good here.
Yeah. Know your place a little bit along with, there's nothing wrong with voicing you don't like something, but also, like you said, you have to be ready for the boss to go, yeah, I don't care. It's my business, okay. That's how it is. Everyone's been through it. So yeah, that is really funny though. You don't think about that, about, when you get told something in therapy and you're like, oh, cool, this will make a big difference.
Let's apply this. Oh, wait a minute. Why isn't it working out?
Yeah.
Well, there's still the interpersonal dynamic. That person doesn't actually have those. It's funny. It was with my ex, and my ex got divorced, And one of the reasons they got divorced is because there was no change happening, right?
Mhm.
And so after the divorce, her ex-husband started going to see a therapist, right? And so now he's learning all these tools, and he wants to go back and have all these conversations. And she was willing to have the conversations, but then he would be like, and like expecting now her to do the back to her, and she looks at him and says, "You're the one that's in therapy, not me. And you have to accept the fact that I don't have to do this work." And it was that same thing that I had a therapist tell me, which is, if they I'm like, she just said, whoa. And I'm like, what do you mean, whoa? Like, it's none of your darn business whether that person ever wants to make changes in their life for the better. They can go on through the rest of their life being exactly who they are, and you can't do anything about it. And that was like, the funny thing about this is I'm like, what was I, 38 years old?
Yeah.
And this was a revelation.
Yes.
Oh,
I get it.
You mean that other people can go on the rest of their lives being exactly who they want to be, and I have no say in it?
Yeah. Right.
That probably would have been good info at 18.
Yeah, right. I went through the same thing because of, I learned that, I'm controlling, and in the way I'm controlling, I'm trying to control the scenario so I'm comfortable to minimize my issues. But I didn't realize how much I was trying to control other people, and they don't see it typically as though I'm doing it for my own well-being, safety, whatever, right? They just see you as controlling. Like, why can't you just let this go? Yeah. Why do you have to have this way? Why do you, And now I can talk about it more, as, I've done countless times on here. But at the time, I was totally stunted on that. I had no clue. I mean, I knew I was controlling, but I didn't realize the reason. It's similar to, I've always been called a know-it-all. And now I'm learning more about how it isn't about know-it-all, being a know-it-all. It's like, I can't accept misinformation.
Yeah.
Like, I have a real issue with that. Like, that is one, it will set me off. Like, I will argue with people if they keep coming at me with the same, and I'm like, no, how are you this stupid? Like, this is, and it's hard for me to work on that. That's something I know I'll be in therapy the rest of my life trying to fix that problem. And I keep trying, but it's hard for me.
But it's so weird to just sit there and say like, well, I'm growing in this way. Why can't they?
Yeah.
And to have somebody say, because they don't have to. They don't have to.
Do you remember?
It's so amazing.
Do you remember when I first I first came on and talked about the distorted thinking worksheet? Yes. And I was like, the hardest thing on here is that now I see all of this in everybody else.
That's it.
And they don't care. Like, they
don't have
care.
To.
Right.
The rest
and
of their life, they could not care. Yep.
Like, the first time my therapist handed me that sheet, I brought it home. I really read through it, and, it was mind-blowing,
exactly,
right? Because, we talked about it. And then the next time I went into therapy, I'm like, okay, how do I deal with the fact that I have a controlling nature? I can't stand misinformation. And now you've handed me a sheet saying that everyone deals in misinformation and illogical thinking. How do I put these three things together so I don't go absolutely crazy? Because I can't tell everybody, you're doing this, you're doing that, because they don't care and they don't want to hear it, right? We all find our therapy, self-help on our own. And also, how do I resolve my, but I just want to help.
Right. I want to make the world a better place.
I don't want you to suffer like I've been suffering. How can I fix you? And it's like, they don't want you to fix you.
And they don't have to.
Or them. Yeah, and they don't have to. Yeah, it was, oh, man.
Yeah. God, it was so I think maybe we need to do a distorted thinking follow-up. It's been a while. I haven't looked at that list in a while.
You were talking about wins for the week, and I'll go to mine real quick, which obviously the first one is I made phone calls and appointments.
Huge.
That's always a win for me, right? Because I'm so bad. So I said, if a site or something has online options, it's great, but so many of the doctor's office ones, it's like, what day of the week do you prefer? What time? I'm like, this is more of a pain than calling. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
like, why can't I just put in first available afternoon and you just find one and just tell me this is the day? That's how I would love it, but whatever. So that the other was actually stumbling into, you know how a lot of times in therapy, realistically, we talk ourselves into aha moments in therapy. A lot of times the therapist does, I don't want to say does nothing, but they just
There's no
sit there.
prompting to it. Yeah.
Yeah, no prompting. Thank you. That's the way I wanted to word it. Yeah. So when Tony and I were talking about, like, our question of the week was, what's a fear that you overcame and how did you do it? And I was kind of laughing at mine because mine was for years and years. When I would take the trash out, I would literally run the garbage from the back of our house out to the front and then run back to get inside, because my brain told me there's evil out here, basically, like something's going to get me, kind of a thing. And for so long, it was like, this is so ridiculous. This is so, and it doesn't bother me. I just took the trash out the other night. I mean, I casually strolled down the porch, walked out, looked up at the stars, sat it down, you know, stood outside because it was a really nice night, and then strolled back in. And it was like, man, I got to stop and celebrate the fact that I've come this far. Because for so long, like I said,
small wins. Yeah.
yes. And that's the thing. But the other side of that is, like I was saying a few minutes ago, I'm still finding things that I did as a kid that I didn't understand. And now I'm going, oh, I've been diagnosed with a form of agoraphobia where outside is dangerous. There was that back then. That probably was feeding into my overall issue. And I didn't even realize that it was an issue, other than I knew I had to run from the back of the house to the, you know, or front and back, you know, like Tony said, I had to do garbage wind sprints, you know. But, you know, when I'm finding these things, sometimes it's not that I'm trying to live in the past. I'm not trying to go backwards and find blame or blah, blah, blah. But when you see that stuff and you go, oh, that's another building block in this wall of fear that I have. Yeah. And it's like, okay, this is something I can keep in my head. When I go to therapy, I can talk to the therapist a little bit and be like, hey, I had this memory that popped up that I hadn't thought about. And, you know, we can talk about that a little bit and make sure that it's not applying to me in the same way now, you know, type of stuff. So those would be my wins for the week.
Those are solid.
Yeah.
How about you, Kiki? You got a win?
I got through work without feeling like complete death.
Oh, that's right. You were totally sick.
Yeah, I was sick this whole week. And, like, it was really nice, though, because my bosses were checking and they're like, hey, how are you doing and everything. I'm like, I feel slightly feverish, but I got this and this and this done.
Yeah.
And
when you feel like that, literally, like, just standing up feels like such a win.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a rough weekend and stuff. I had to do a 9-hour shift at the mall, feeling like total garbage.
Oh,
and
been there. Yeah. I haven't done it at the mall, but I've worked retail at Christmas, so I understand.
I hate the mall at Christmas time. Yeah. It is the worst. I'm so glad we're closing our kiosk down after Christmas this year, because I did it one year and I'm like, nope. I was like, Maria, I will do all my shifts at the store. I will work extra hours at the store. I do not want to work the kiosk at the holiday season this year at all.
God. I imagine that's gonna be a nightmare.
The biggest issue that gets both me and it does get Caleb frustrated too is that our Wi-Fi for the work is through T-Mobile, so it's off the tower.
Oh,
and when you have 50 bajillion people all in the mall, all on the same tower, our internet and our POS system just goes crashes.
It becomes a POS system.
Yeah.
Wow. So, it becomes a POS. Yeah, you're right.
So and it's frustrating for Caleb because he hates feeling like he's letting people down because he's not getting the job done fast enough, or he's not getting it done well enough.
Right, and I'm sure that delays. I mean, obviously, if your POS is down,
exactly
that's such a nightmare.
It's so hard
because nobody now, like, you can't. Most places don't allow the employees to just like work a cash register, and plus everybody's paying with card too. You know, so
exactly,
it sucks that you can't work around that anymore.
Yeah,
you know. I went into GameStop a few weeks ago and they were having an issue with their computers, and they literally they were just, and I'm like, why are you even open? Like, you're frozen. You can't do anything. They don't have a cash register. I mean, they do, but you know what I mean?
Like, we've got an iPad that is set up with Shopify, and that's basically it. And that's how a lot of stores are actually running these days.
Which makes sense. It's cheap, compared to some of the systems,
Yeah, it's cheap, and it's actually, compared to some of the other POS systems that I've used, it's a lot more user friendly. It's super easy
Yes.
to navigate. It does a lot of the math part for you so that you don't have to worry about that, which is
Yeah.
great. That helps alleviate a lot of issues
Yeah.
within retail, but it also creates its own level of stress too.
Oh, totally.
So
Yeah.
we had one of our staff members completely logged herself out of the entire system, and during that exchange, somebody broke the geode cracker. So
Oh, jeez.
she was not having a good day that day.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're right. It's like it does make a lot of things easier, but it does bring its own set of issues with it along the way. Yeah, because I've worked both where, like my comic shop, we didn't have any way of taking credit cards unless somebody like PayPal'd me, basically.
Yeah.
So everything was done on a manual cash register. I didn't have a POS when we did that, so I've worked that. I've worked a cash box. I grew up doing flea markets and festivals where all of it's just cash in hand, but then I also worked in video stores where everything was, through computers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, so it's because from that generation of where we really are, I've called the people my age, like the bridge generation, because we were around before cell phones and everything was digital
and everything. And then, we were in that whole flux of.
Yep. And we've also embraced all of the technology now. Yeah. So it's, which isn't all bad.
If you sat one of the newest generation down in front of a manual register, they would have no idea what to do with it.
Yeah. I've seen people where, making change just befuddles them. And listen, math's not everybody's strong suit, and that's fine, but it's like, I was making change to people at like 8 years old, because I was doing these markets and stuff. So it's like, it's no problem for me now. Like, as soon as if I pay with cash, I know exactly how much I'm getting back. And, my brain still, math's always been a strong point for me anyway. So I could do it. And because one of the places I worked, literally the computer broke down. Like, this is how many dimes, nickels, pennies to give back to people in change. And at first I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who? And then but then I worked with somebody and she had a real hard time with change, meaning coin change. And I was kind of like, do you not like know how to make change? And she's like, math's always been, she's basically, I don't know how to describe it other than kind of like a dyslexia concept for math, to where her brain flips numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that falls in dyslexia or not, because I'm not educated.
It does.
On
Yeah.
it.
There is part of dyslexia that does focus on specifically on numbers.
That's what messed her up a lot of times, is she couldn't, the numbers would get flipped. I'm like, oh, and she goes, this is actually a lot easier for me. I was like, oh, great. I'm glad it works for you then. Because like when I would train people, I'm like, yeah, this shows down here, but it's like, if you can actually make change, we would really prefer you don't use this tool.
Counting it back correctly, like
right.
They're just like, here's 412 back, and I'm like, no. I was like, here, try it this way. I was like,
yeah.
This adds up to 5, 6, 7, 8. Like,
right. Yeah, it's a, I don't want to call it a lost art, but it really is. I mean, don't see places do that anymore. And once you know how to
do it, though, like, and then once you're doing it for other people, they're actually really impressed that there's still people out there that do it that way, because it is such a
You're right.
thing.
Yeah. If you pay cash at a fast food place, you pretty much, like you said, they're like, here's your change. Like, they just give you the lump of money.
Yeah.
And, it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, I always, again, I know how much change I'm getting, so I count real quick. But, yeah, it's, I'm not trying to turn this into old man rant time, but, but it's just interesting how not knowing how to do things digitally can be a real hindrance when, like the one video store I worked at.
Its own anxiety and its own stress levels to it.
Our system went down and they were like, oh, just do it all manually. And I'm like, what? Like, I can do this, but this is going to be a real nightmare. And it was. We had to write down like the side of the the barcode. We had to write down each barcode that we rented out.
Right.
Like, take the money from people, because we could access the cash drawer.
Oh, and write down the SKU. Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah,
I had a couple. Yeah, it was. And then once the system came back up, we had to then input
all of it. Ugh.
It's not like, and it's not like I had barcodes to scan, which would have been fast. I had to stand there and type
them all. Yeah, like 10 key it all in.
Once again, luckily, I've taken typing, so I'm pretty good on a number pad. So I was like, hey, just
give it to me. I'll.
Yeah. I was like, you do the other stuff that needs to be done. I'll stand over here and key in all this stuff. Also, that way, if there's anything wrong, there's only one person,
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. So yeah, well, I'm glad you made it through your shifts all right, because
It was rough, but I did it.
it's tough to work. It's really tough to work customer service when you feel like garbage. Like,
It
I don't
is.
think a lot of people who've never worked that. I mean, it's tough to work anything when you feel like garbage, but when you're also expected to be like, oh, hey, thanks for coming in, like, and you're just like, I just want to die.
Mhm.
I just want to fall over and sleep.
But yeah, no, other than that, it was a really good week.
Good.
Can't
Glad
really
to hear it.
complain too much.
All right. Cool.
Everyone showed up for their shifts on time. The new girl that's 15 that we were unsure of how she's doing great.
Awesome.
But she's very outspoken and very, like, she has goals. She goes, I need to save up money so I can go to Frightmares this week or this October, and then I'm saving up money for a car. And then I'm like, all right,
Cool.
then you know what you need to do to get the job. And she's like, yep. And I was like, and don't let any of your friends steal things. And she goes, no, I'll yell at them. I already told them they're not allowed to steal things if I'm working here. And I was like, or at all would be great.
Right. Yeah. Or at all, please. Yeah.
Like anywhere,
Yeah,
ever.
like, please don't steal.
Maybe we shouldn't do that, just as a matter of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There doesn't need to be an asterisk on
right.
this. It
Yeah,
should
like
just be
here.
please don't steal. Oh man. Well, do we want to go into the other, or what do you want to do here?
It's like we've nailed an episode already.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, we're at an hour and 15.
It's okay.
roughly,
This will give you
so-
guys a chance to watch the movie. And
Actually,
then...
right. Yes.
That's true.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
because I
gonna-
do.
We're going to tease this. Everybody go watch Inside Out 2 and we'll discuss.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess with that, if you want to continue the conversation, you can find our. Oh, geez, I lost it already. Our website is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. I really should stop pushing that. We really don't really do much with it. So, but if you want to, and the email too, I need to check.
Yeah, like
the email.
nobody ever. Yeah, when was the last time you looked at it?
I don't even know if I have a password to it. I might
That's
have to get a hold
funny.
of Jen to get a password for it. But it is the Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com. But really, at this point, if you want to contact us, shoot us a DM through Twitter at the Crazy Life Pod, or on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. That's probably, I see those at least.
those pop
So
up.
Mhm.
yeah.
Did you make a?
What?
Do you have to have an Instagram to make a Threads, or can you just do a Threads?
I don't know.
Oh.
Because I never made an Instagram for this. Because
Yeah, I
we
don't
don't,
think it-
we don't
yeah.
really do anything that warrants it. So, but Threads would actually be more beneficial because I could at
Yeah.
least throw the show link in there. I can't, you can't do that on. Well, I can, but it's not hyperlinked on
Yeah, on Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, because we're not popular enough. So, because we don't have an account, so we obviously can't have a following. I don't know. I'll have to look into that, because if so, maybe I'll set one up. But how about you guys? How do you?
Well, you can find me pretty much everywhere with using my name Heno, or on like X, formerly known as Twitter. It's Ida Heno, and then I think on all the other ones, it's either me or my old name, Just Limo. But pretty much my full name is on everything, I think,
Yeah, I think it is.
because I just
did-
don't care.
Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah. Well, the link's in the show notes too, so I can, for anyone who wants to find Heno,
And then
or just call the police or something, whatever.
That too.
Yeah,
Yep.
they'll know him. Yeah, like, oh yeah, we know that guy. No,
Mhm.
selling.
Are you posting any of your art stuff?
on Instagram, I haven't done any of
So-
my art
so
stuff on
Kiki's
Instagram
doing,
in a hot minute.
right?
As part of the store, she does these like art classes.
Yes, I do paint and sip classes.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
cool.
she does the art piece, and then everyone comes in to kind of like the copy it, right?
Yeah. We have a stencil base for it basically, and well, a couple of them we haven't had to do stencil bases for, because that's not what the prompt was. But we're doing one on the 19th. It's gonna be like this ghost that's on a swing and like this spooky fall forest thing, and we have
Cool.
wine and sparkling cider for people, and
Sometimes you
nice.
get pretty good turnout too.
Yeah, the last couple we haven't, like, the summer was really hard on us, but then I was like, I really can't blame them. People were out and about doing stuff. I was like, I bet
There's
you the
so
craft
much
classes,
more to do in the summer. Yeah.
yeah, the craft classes and the painting classes will probably start kicking back up during the winter and stuff when people have nothing. Yeah, they're not going out and doing stuff and have
Yeah.
nothing better to do. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So what are
Well,
your
if you-
contacts?
find me through Facebook at Kiki Hake. I'm also on Instagram, but I never remember my Instagram tag. So
Are you
That's fair.
Kiki Covet on all those?
I think, yeah, I
think
think
you
so.
are.
All right.
And I'm on Twitter, but that's not for this show.
Yeah, mine's
Oh.
not really either. But
Yeah, most of mine isn't either too. But
yeah. I mean, but yeah. Yeah, if you do want to follow me on whatever socials I happen to be on, it's Dunami on all of them. If it's not, then I don't want you following me. No.
I was like,
It
that's
does-
why I didn't even give out the other name because I'm like,
Well,
nope.
it's funny because like I've used that name since like it was my AOL email name in like the
Mhm.
90s, right? You know, so I've had it forever. But every once in a while when I go to sign up for something, it's somebody else already has it. So it's like, oh, I have to come up with something else now, which I have a couple others that I use. But I generally, if I can't get the other one, it's probably not one I'm using very often. So because otherwise I would have had it all this time. Yeah. So yeah, but you can find my other podcast, which is Salty Language at saltylanguage.com or at on Twitter at salty_language. That show's for sure not safe for work, so please be aware of that. The last episode is just me and my best friend. We talked about the Mr. McMahon documentaries, Tales from the Territories, a show called Uzumaki, which was very weird. Heinz 57 sauce. Tony talked about Beetlejuice, and we talked about a whole bunch of other, like we talked about salsa, weird toe stories, any of the just normal kind of stuff you'd want to
that's
listen
pretty
to.
normal for salty language.
Yeah,
I just
right.
read
That's
a
what I'm
weird
saying.
toe story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a weird toe story. Well, it's really not now. It was a weird toe story. Now it's just a re-injuring of a weird toe. But anyways. Also, we're part of the Tangibound Network, which can be found at tangiboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there. And if you need a home for your podcasts, they're a network that we're part of. So come join us. Or don't, whatever. So, yeah. All right. I think that's... Oh, of course. Also, if you need help, please reach out and please check on your friends. And as always, please lead with kindness and understanding as much as possible. We understand there's some real chowderheads out there that you just feel like you got to smack, but please try to lead with kindness whenever possible. Actually, the
You'll
other day
feel
at the store, I had a woman come up to me and she was so like shy about it as an older woman, and she was just like, excuse me, and I was like, because I didn't have my AirPods in, I was just in for a couple things, so I didn't bother with them, and I was like, yeah, because I'm like, clearly she's not going to think I work here because I had zero Kroger gear on, but I have had people at Target where I was wearing a red shirt come up to me, do you work here? I'm like, no, I just happen to have a red shirt on, but she came up and wanted to know if I knew where the Cheese Whiz was. She's like, I keep looking and I cannot find it. It's not over by the cheese. And I'm like, well, it's because it's not cheese. But so I told her where it was at. Then I saw her just still deer in headlighting around the store a little bit. And I was like, come here, I'll show you where it's at. And I walked her over. It was just kind of funny. She was. Yeah, it was super nice. She was super nice and really appreciative. It was, I was like, yeah, it's been by the pasta for a long time. I don't know, I guess for mac and cheese purposes or something. I don't know, but that's where it was. So it's over by like the canned Parmesan cheese type stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, it was just kind of funny, when you see stuff like that sometimes, because it's just, the way she approached me, I was kind of like, why is she being so meek about approaching me? It's like, am I giving off this much of a vibe? Like I'm scowling at everybody. Like, I got a hammer. I'm just tapping my hand with it. I don't know what was going on, but yeah. So anyways, yeah, just help people when you can. And yeah, I guess, Heno, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, this
For
is
Kiki
in. I will be referencing our friend Annalise's favorite statement. Who she is lost her job
Yeah, I heard about that.
forever, and that's hard when you work somewhere where you love where you work. And,
Yeah.
but I know she is going to go out there and live her omelet because that's who she is.
Truth.
Yep. And if she has any issues, we'll just remind her, don't worry about yesterday's pizza.
That's right.